Hi, everyone. This is Carson Grubaugh. Today, I'm joined by regular guest of the show, Matt Battaglia, who's standing in for Sean, who can't make a Saturday recording session because he likes playing with his kids. And then our guest for today is Matt Lesniewski, who we're so excited to have and so grateful, Matt. I've been foolishly, I hadn't grabbed your books until recently, but I've been following you obsessively on Instagram because I think I don't know, you're just off on your whole other thing that's so fresh and exciting. Yeah, I am. I'm internet
I
stalking.
think a lot of people are stalking your Instagram.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So really excited to have you, and really grateful that you're sharing your time with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I think the first thing that I always like to ask, and maybe it's because I'm an educator and I just like to see so my students either know that you should go to college or have a counterpoint. It's like, do you have an educational background in art?
I don't.
But see, I like them to hear that as well, that you've honed this on your own.
Yeah. I thought about it. I almost went to the Kubert School. I strongly considered that. I don't know.
I grew up next door to the Kubert School, and Carson went there briefly.
Yeah.
You went there?
Yeah, I went there in 2000. I actually just found out that recently I figured out that me and Ed Piskor were there at the same time. We were in the same class, but I was really socially awkward at the time, and he was in a different of the 4 classrooms, and I met him once, but we both dropped out. I dropped out earlier. I made it till Christmas break and then was like, peace. When would you have been trying to go there?
What's that?
When would you have been trying to go there?
Oh, that was probably, this would have been 2012.
Okay, so more recently.
Somewhere around there.
I don't know how it's survived, if it's gotten better, but in my experience in 2000, and the few interactions I've had with Ed Piskor, we both agree that you're not missing out on anything.
It has gotten better since 2000.
Okay.
It was just kind of a passing,
occasionally,
kind of a passing consideration. Like, oh, I know, this is supposed to be a specialized school for exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
And honestly, it might have been a couple of days that I was really considering it. I never went there. I never really looked into it that deep, but that was the only school that well, actually there was one other, but it was for concept art for video games, which I want to say a year before that was my initial thing. I thought maybe not was easier, but there was another school local to me that specialized in that, and it just seemed like there was a more of a clear path to that career. And I always thought of comics, but I just thought of it as there's not even a doorway. There's no doorway. There's no entrance. There's no apply here, sign up, anything that I noticed. So I just
Well, and I like one of the reasons I ask is because a lot of my students want to know, how do you make it happen? And like I can't honestly describe to them an educational pathway. So it's always good to hear, do the people that we're interviewing go, and if not, like, what was your pathway, and how did you knock that door down?
I mean, I'm still trying to knock it down, but there's little steps along the way where you kind of feel like, oh, okay, I'm making a little bit of progress here, or a door that I thought was closed kind of opened it. But well, I'll say over the years the goal changed also. So like at first it was just I just wanted to be a penciler for like DC or Marvel. That's it. That's all I wanted to do, because my view of comics was so limited. That's all I really knew, and that's what I grew up reading. So I thought, oh yeah, this is the only possible avenue for me, if any at all. And I tried just sending out what do they call them? Sample pages, like 3 to 5 pages that I just made up, a fake Batman story. Never got me anywhere. Sometimes I'd get a response and they'd say, "Oh yeah, it looks kind of cool, but nah, keep going, kid." And for years, I'd just be doing that, just spinning my tires, not getting anywhere. And I just, I would team up with some writers too, who were trying to break in. Did some pitches, none of them went anywhere. And this is probably 3 or 4 years of just doing this nonstop on the side, just seeing if anything will happen. And then eventually, like I said, the goal changed, and I just kind of said, like, what if I just, because from the beginning I always thought, let me focus on the one skill that I feel like I have the best possible chance, which was drawing. I was always in school, I was thought of as, oh, that's the kid who draws. He's in the corner sketching. That he's the artist. So I thought, oh, I'm not a writer. I'm not a real writer, even though I would kind of make up stories and stuff here and there. But then one day, I don't know, it just hit me. I'm like, why don't I just try? Why do I view myself as only this one thing? So I kind of opened my mind to different ways of, trying this thing. And I just started small, just do a 3-page comic of my own that I write and draw. I did it. And just from doing it, I amazed myself just by, not that it was good, but I actually did it. And I didn't think, like I said, I only viewed myself as one thing. And as soon as I kind of changed it, changed my approach, it slowly, the ball started rolling in a certain direction, and it escalated to doing my own self-published comics that I would write and draw. And pretty much I just kept doing that for, I don't know, another few years. And eventually I got to the Freak, and I didn't think anything was different, really. I just kind of kept doing it. Again, I would do my own comics, and no one would notice, no one would care, or, a few people would notice. And then I took that one to, every year I do the same thing. I'd self-publish, I don't know, 100 copies, bring them to a convention, and no one would notice, no one would care. But that one, something changed. Like, I don't know what happened. Maybe I just did it long enough. Suddenly people are coming up to my table and they're like, "Oh, who are you? Like, how have I never heard of you? And what is this? Oh, this is cool." And they're looking at the original art, and then it got published, and then that thing led to another thing, and just slowly the ball's been, rolling in until I'm here today. And I don't know. It is probably kind of a rambling mess, but
no. But were you surprised at that response? Did you feel like, hey, this is like
100%? Yeah.
Like, yeah, I've gotten better since last year, obviously, but this doesn't look that different? Or were you really like, I've produced something that's like a level? Like, did you feel like you had reached a new plateau with the Freak?
Well, I went into it. I should say this, with that particular book, I went into it with the mindset, like, this is going to be noticed.
Mm-hmm.
This, I don't care if people are going to like it or not. They're going to see what I did here, and they're going to have to respect it. But I never expected the results to actually, at the end of the day, I didn't think it was anything special. I just thought, yeah, that's nice. You could think that, you could believe that all you want, but that only gets you so far. But sure enough, somehow it translated. So I don't really know.
I mean,
if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's very relatable where you finish something that, I mean, and the Freaks is a pretty substantial book. It's how many pages do you think it's like a couple 100 pages maybe?
Actually it's only 60.
Only 60? Okay.
Because at first I did it as a 20-page one shot.
Okay.
And then after I got either to the end of it or towards the end, I realized, oh wait, there's more to this. And then it ended up being a 3-part story. So
I'm curious how I'm curious how your process has changed over like the course of the books that you've got out, but with something like The Freak and sort of it being your first foray into, I guess, writing a longer story for yourself, did you actually like write a script, or did you kind of bullet point it and thumbnail it and then just draw it, or like what was, because I mean I write and draw things for myself, and I always find that scripts are, I don't like scripts, but I'm curious what your process was with that.
Yeah, my process from that to now actually hasn't changed at all.
Okay.
But I do write a full script.
Okay.
I just prefer that for myself. Like there's so many little story details that I feel like I'd forget.
Mm-hmm.
That eventually I do like to work it into a full script. So I do full, not paragraphs, but I do full
Right.
descriptions of a panel. Some are pretty simple, maybe one sentence, like, I don't know, guy runs around a corner. Like it's pretty simple. But others, I'll put notes like, I don't know if I'd have to think back to The Freak. Like, actually, I mean, I could probably pull it up. I could read to you.
Yeah,
I'm
you
just-
want to
I'm
go to a
curious-
specific page?
I'm just
Sure.
curious
wanna
because
see?
you have such a like it's such a visual, your storytelling is visual folk like oriented, right?
Yeah.
Like you tell the stories through pictures. You don't really, I wouldn't accuse you of overwriting anything in your books, which I think is great because you can look at the book and you can get a really good sense of what it's about without actually having to read a single word.
I try to, as much as I can, communicate through the images. And yeah, before I really figure out like dialogue and, precise story moments, exactly down to panels and that kind of thing, I just try to visualize the actual story in general. That's before anything. I'll just see the story. Maybe it sounds weird, but like I'll really be kind of seeing it almost in panel form,
Yeah.
more or less. And then from there, once I have it somewhat figured out, then I'll just do paragraphs.
Mhm.
And it's all a mess. It's not, a lot of that gets cut out, a lot of it gets edited down, and then I work that into a script. So, but
Actually, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you wanted me to read any part of a script, I have it right here. I could pull it up.
Yeah, like I've got this this sequence from early on that's pretty silent. I think that's one of the reasons Matt was asking, is because so much of it seems like silent scenes with hardly any dialogue. It looks like it might be just something you figure out visually. So like this sequence from early on
Okay.
would be cool because it's so silent. But that was actually another thing I wanted to ask you about, is the interior visualization process, because your work strikes me as someone who is like a hyper visualizer. Like you can really see this stuff in your head, which is something we've talked about on the channel a number of times, because I can't do that. I see nothing in my head at all, and it's very much a struggle. So I'm always envious of artists like you that appear to have these full scenes like photographically in their mind, and I'm always curious how much that's the case, or how much there's something else going on there.
Yeah, that's very much the case. Ever since I was a kid, like I would be one of the main things I would do. I wouldn't even have toys or anything. I would just be alone in my room with the door closed, and I'd be visualizing these stories essentially, and I'd just kind of be acting them out like a very weird child. And I'd be just kind of seeing stories take place in my head, but I'd be kind of acting them out, like make believe, but just by myself. And I kind of use that same muscle with comics. Like I'm not acting anything out, but I'll be pacing back and forth while I'm visualizing the story, and I'm kind of oh yeah, then this can happen. Oh okay, yeah, and because this will happen over here, and I'll be working it out in my head. And once I have a certain amount, I'll just blurt it out with text to capture it. Because like I said, if I don't do that, I'll lose a lot of it.
You'll lose the visual.
I'll lose the visual, and I'll lose certain moments that happen. So I'll try to capture as much as I can, not worrying about if any of it's good or does this make sense. Just get it all down, and then edit that, organize it in order somewhat, then filter that into scripts. So
it's interesting that the visual, like such a hyper visual experience, then has to filter through language and then back to the visual. Like I've always been jealous of people who work like that, because it's like, I'm so good at drawing what I see. If I could just see it, then I could just like trace it onto the page.
Right.
So it's interesting to hear that there's that other step for you. Do you ever have the experience of, like, a lot of people that have that seem to complain about what's on the paper can never match what's in their head?
I mean, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. Like I'm not really going for that. I just have a general idea, and drawing it is part of the, well, maybe this is, I don't know. That's part of the creation, because once it's in your head, that's just the early phase. So me drawing it, I'm figuring it out also. I'm kind of surprising myself, like, oh yeah, this is what it really is.
Well, something that something Carson and I were talking about before you joined was like, even like looking at all of your work, there's a constant like evolution on the page. Like it doesn't actually static. Crimson Flower, The Freak, the way that you draw on page one is like you've evolved like your look for the characters has evolved throughout the book, which I think is a really cool, I think that's a really cool thing. Like how, I mean, the Freak, he starts out, he's not quite as much of a triangle, but by the end of the book, he is a triangle. And then like even your shorthand and static for Emmett, by the time you get to the end, I mean, granted, he's a different character at the end, but before that, you also kind of shortcut how you draw him, and you change like that vein. I think that vein shorthand that you have, it's on the cover here, but you very much evolve that concept by the end of it too, where they're really pulsing and there's a lot more rendering and things like that going on.
Yeah, part of that is it's like halfway. I'm figuring it out as I go. Like I haven't drawn the character before. I might have done some sketches, or okay, yeah, he's gonna kind of look like this. Yeah, okay, right. I kind of have him down. But over time, I'm figuring it out. But also, a lot of it is I'm getting bored. So I'm kind of morphing. I'm entertaining myself by, let me really play up his hair here. Let me really, really elongate these arms. I'm kind of, and hopefully the reader is also experiencing that. And they're kind of, because if the character just looks the same, you might be getting bored. But also,
like Carson, look at the veins on that page. Go back. Like that's totally. You've changed the language for veins by the by that point in the book, which is really, I think it's really cool, and it's
compared to at the beginning, for sure.
Yeah.
And I was noticing too in your sketches that you have in the back of the books, even Crimson Flower, which is the most recent one, the sketches look like more normal to me. They look like a good, competent cartoonist, and then the character, the morphing of the forms.
There's that hair panel that you were pointing out earlier.
Yeah, the morphing of the forms kicks in with the pages, and so that was something that I've really been enjoying studying.
Those are actually those character sketches were done probably way too fast. Like
Yeah.
at no one's fault but my own, because it's a long story, but I just blasted them on the page like, oh yeah, this is gonna look like this is gonna look like that. Oh, I can see this. All right, yeah. And it's not necessarily, it's got a lot of energy to it, but it's, maybe I wish I kind of sat back a little bit and thought about it a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I'm not mad at any of them, but looking back on it, I remember doing those and kind of like I'd read the description and instantly I'd get kind of an image, and I wanted to quickly just blast it on the page. And those sketches are what you're seeing. I'm not really trying to impress, or I'm not really trying to anything other than just capture what I'm seeing and get the general idea. And then as I'm doing the comic, I can exaggerate certain things, or it, like you said, it'll morph as the story goes on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So I guess on that sort of line, how much do you leave for yourself in ink in the sort of inks? You have a very precise, like your inks are precise, because I think are you using like primarily like microns?
mostly, yeah.
I think you're a lunatic. It's an amazing style, but like, how much do you leave for yourself in the ink? Because it's exaggerated, but it's an exacting ink style. Like,
mostly all I'm getting with the pencils are the shapes.
okay,
So I'm getting like I'm just thinking of this as an example. The first issue of Crimson Flower, the first assassin, he's got a lot of I don't know, I guess appendages or long things that are kind of crossing each other, and I don't want to confuse those or figure that out when I'm inking. So
right.
I'm figuring that out with the pencils and getting, like I said, the shapes, and then the textures are mostly what I'm leaving for the inks. But also I'm leaving them loose enough that I can finalize what's there with the inks. But that's also why I like microns, is that,
Yeah.
or at least that style of tool is now more than ever. In those books, I wasn't doing it as much. I would only do it here and there, or maybe not at all. It's hard to remember, but now I do the pencils, and then I do a very fine line, almost as a second pencil phase. So it's like I'm penciling it a second time.
Yeah.
In a way. Then I go with a thicker line. Well, hang on. I'll do that second pencil phase, but with micron, a very thin line, almost like a half dead one. And then I'll do textures, and you can kind of go outside the line a little bit with that. And because I do a lot of like cross hatching and stuff.
You're constantly
then I'll do a
building it
thicker
up.
line over that and finalize the outlines. So I used to just do outlines. All right, that's the outline. Now if I'm doing textures, I'll do it on top of that, and you can kind of, you're jumping too much, like to the end.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like for me at least, if you kind of tiptoe in, if you're able to do that and you have the time, you're going to get way better results. Like just kind of be delicate with it. Be precious with it. Like be careful, because like how can I say this? Like it's very easy to add ink. It's not easy to remove it.
Yeah.
Not even thinking about whiteout, but it's throw it in there, like, bit by bit, like, or at least you can do that. You don't have to just jump to, oh yeah, get a bold, like, and this is just for what I do. It's, there are tons of different ways to approach this stuff. It's just, that's another way. That's part of why I like microns. You were saying, "Oh, you're crazy," but and yes, I am.
I meant it. I did mean it as a compliment because
I know what you
I
meant.
think you're.
I know what you meant. I'm just saying there is a method behind the madness.
Yeah.
So
It makes
It's an
sense to
incredible
me.
style.
It's like a revelation to me actually to listen to you talking about that.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the book with me, but I was looking at Dagger, the stuff you did in Dagger,
yeah,
and the Freak, which is in black and white as well. The Freak has really not the same type of texture stuff. It's much more, even though there's a lot of hatching and stuff, it doesn't build up value in the same way. It's like all contour. Like I imagine this is what you're talking about when you're saying, "Oh, I start with the fine line and then I build the texture."
Actually, no.
No.
It's actually that one. That was the earliest book out of what's there.
Yeah.
That one I actually did with a completely different approach. That's before I figured out the whole tiptoe in thing.
Okay.
I had this weird rule for myself at the time where I only wanted everything to be I would never go over a line twice,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like I would never kind
Uh-huh.
of like sketch with inking,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
if you really examine the lines, most of them are just the first attempt.
Yeah. What
Which
can I do
is
with the range of the pen I've got?
it's kind of like what I was saying before with I was jumping to the end right away. Just
Mhm.
this is the final line. I've captured what I have, like, and there's no room for kind of figuring this out. It's just, and I don't know why at the time I went into it that way. I backed myself into a corner in my head where I decided for some reason this is good. I don't know why. I have to only use one line for each line.
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
we're
I thought sketching was messy, or I thought it was, but
yeah.
you gain nothing from that. I've
Yeah.
found.
Where I was going with it is that this to me looks like a first layer of just putting down some lines, and then I could see you filling in and then going back and darkening them. But even with this, where you don't have as much texture built up, you don't have as much value, you don't have as much dark line put around everything, there's still like everything, it could get lost in the muck of just everything being around the same line, and it doesn't. And by the time you got to Dagger, I was really impressed with, even though it was in black and white, like how legible everything was. And I could see by going in and manipulating that final line weight at the end, you're really allowing yourself to, like, this is where I need that contrast pop, this is where I need that edge to pop out. Like, especially with all the texture, if you had determined the edges ahead of time, you wouldn't know how to balance the black against the gray as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of illuminating to me, because I would always, I would work the other way, I think. But you're making me reconsider that.
But there's nothing wrong with, there's no rules to any of this. That's the other thing I found is there's no right or wrong. It's just complete. That's how I do it. As of right now, I could completely change it tomorrow.
When I like that you're within your work, you don't have rules for yourself because you kind of constantly are changing and breaking them and
right.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff that you post on Instagram, the commissions or sketches or whatever, like even your rendering styles for those, you're always switching those out. Like I find all the patterning stuff interesting. So the question would be, like, for your next comics work, are you working more in that style that you're posting in? Are you kind of pushing further in that sort of exaggerated with all the crazy textures and all that stuff? I mean, are you working that narratively?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the comics is you're kind of just seeing snapshots of where I'm at that moment. And I don't necessarily think of it as, oh, all right, for this book, I'm going to jump to this approach. It's just one continuous evolution.
Yeah.
And the comics are just kind of, you're just seeing where I'm at that moment. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of my answer. Like,
well, and it's page by page. That's what I was so impressed by. And I even in Static, there's a page at the end, that to me, a panel at the end that seems to sum up the whole book, where he's got this new body and he's walking away and he says, "For so long I was content with the discomfort of the familiar." And that struck me as like what your story, when you write, what your, both of the Freak and Static seem to be about that in a sense thematically, but then your art also struck me as this complete ongoing battle, page by page, drawing by drawing, about not being content with the familiar. And you said something about getting bored, and I'll see that you like in Crimson Flower, you'll do one, she's got all these curls of hair, but one will be cross-hatched and one will be stippled and one will be cross-contoured. And so that seems like the driving ethic of what you do. Maybe
it's a big part of it. Like it's a big part of everything that I'm doing. Like I don't ever want to feel like I figured anything out, or oh, all right, I've honed in my style. This is my style, and I just wear it like a jacket. And yep, that's me. Everyone recognizes me as the guy who does this texture, and that's that. That is so boring. What's the fun in that? So many artists do it, and I'm not judging it. I'm not criticizing it. It's just for me, I could never do that. Like I could never. It's already very mundane. Let's be honest. We're sitting here with a sheet of paper, you know, with lines, and make it fun. Like switch it up, try different things. That's part of how you get better, I think. Like,
yeah.
So.
And has that always been like a driving force in your art, or is that as you go, like, and you gain confidence, you can do that more and more? Or
yeah, I would say confidence, finding confidence in what you're doing kind of helps with that. Like even down to each line, like having confidence while you're trying out different things. And because if you're just unsure and you're second guessing and that kind of thing, I don't know how I'm even coming off right now, but I'm just trying to be honest. Like,
I mean, the vibe I think fits with our general ethos on comics, right, Carson? Like it's where it's like you're like the auteur sense is what you're bringing. I mean, that's what it feels like you're always trying to make art for yourself. I'm
not trying to not trying to impress, or I'm not trying to make what I think is good or what I think people are going to like, which is probably stupid. I just kind of do what I do, and I have fun with it, and hopefully that kind of radiates off in some way to my people who resonate with what I'm doing. And yeah, hopefully.
But that's why we're stalking you on Instagram, because like
we
respect
stalkers aren't good.
But I think you get a positive response to that, because it's pushed you into something that's unique and identifiable, but not locked in. You know, you're not locked into that's the one thing he does. And I think when you talk about confidence, like I think the core of that is like, it seems like you're willing to do it and you don't know if it's going to succeed or not, but you're willing to take that leap and like fuck it if it works. And that's real confidence, right? Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah, well,
otherwise you're sure. I think that's the difference between being sure and being confident. Like confident, you're not sure.
Well, I'm confident with it. It's like I'm being myself. I'm confident in that, and that's all I can be. So it's like take it or leave it. Either I can't make you like me. So some people are not going to like you. Some people are. I don't know. Again, it's probably not a good strategy. It's not a good, but if you're approaching art as a business, you know, the two don't really mix.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And like kudos to you for being brave to still be chasing this, like as a career. Cause I think I chickened out at some point. And I said, okay, well, because I have that same thing, and I'm really stylistically, I get bored real easy, and I don't even do like a slow evolution. I'll just skirt like totally off to the left. And I
Do a
knew
quick
that
turn.
wasn't a viable marketing strategy, and so I said I'm going to go be a teacher to make my money, and then that gives me the freedom. So people who are like, staking it on that, like, mad respect to that.
Oh, I could
too.
crash and burn at any moment. It's not a good, but then again, I don't ever think about this stuff. I just do it. And it's just that now I'm talking about it and you guys are asking me, that I'm forced to kind of reflect on it. And, oh yeah, that's what I do. I kind of just do what I think is fun, because otherwise, why else am I doing this?
Right.
Let's be real. Everyone said it. It doesn't pay great, or at least so far it hasn't. It's not a money thing. If you're in this for money, what are you doing? Like, go do something else.
Yeah. The people who make comics and aren't making it for the art of making them are nuts.
if it's not clear that I'm doing this because I'm very passionate about it, I don't know what you're looking at, because it's like you said, you must be insane. Yeah, kind of.
Just making comics is crazy. It's a labor heavy art form, but I think it's the most creatively fulfilling art form because of that, in many ways.
Yeah. I agree.
I have an actual interview type question, which was that you worked with Matt Kent, which I thought was you guys started Crimson Flower as like a Patreon comic, and then it obviously got picked up by Dark Horse. I was curious if you learned anything from working with Kent, and what that was like, and if there were any lessons that you're kind of taking into the future from Matt, since he's I would say, successful comic book artist, writer, whatever.
Yeah. If anything, I would just say I was inspired by how he can take on all these different books and stories and actually do them. And that's something that I want to actually do, because, as you know, if you're drawing comics, for the most part, you can only do one at a time. It's taking all of your energy just to do that one. You're lucky if you can get one page done a day. So, but I have so many more stories I want to tell. And so the fact that he's able to do all this stuff, I look to him as someone who, hey, he's doing it. Like, and that's probably the biggest thing I'd say I took away.
Well, and I was interested in, like, having been someone who's been doing it on your own, and you're kind of like restless and relentless in this evolution. How was that process different working for someone else? And then, like, by the end of that, were you like, that other part of you had the restlessness took back over,
or? Well, it was kind of the same. I mean, well, no, it wasn't. Basically, it started right as the pandemic was starting. So it was going to be the first book where I had a real deadline. So that was a big change. Whereas all the other books, I just kind of did them in my free time, or I'd be doing them, I'd just be by myself I've kind of used this analogy before, but all the other books where it's just me, it feels like I'm on a raft in the ocean by myself. and I'll occasionally I'll pull out my walkie-talkie and I'll radio into home base. Hey, I'm on this page. And they'll just say, okay, cool, keep going. And that's that. But this one, it's like there's a whole crew on a ship, and I'm a part of the crew, and I don't want to be the weak link. Or at least that's how I went into it. So I thought, oh man, I can't miss deadlines. I have to really go above and beyond. And none of this was said to me. None of this was, you better do this, you better do that. none of that. I just thought it up and just thought of it as, I don't know, I don't know, maybe they were weird paranoid thoughts, but
Yeah,
and
I
then
could see that.
the pandemic hit, and then so it's like, oh, deadlines don't matter. Just comics might not even be a thing anymore, so don't worry about it. But I still, for some reason, that didn't change anything in my head. I'm like, no. I have to. I'm still a part of this team. The ship is still moving. We need to get to land. Let me, get my oar going. And so, wow, is this any of this making sense?
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Okay.
Part of what I was interested in is I noticed a real, like when you do your own work, especially in static, there's the pacing is different. Like there's a lot more panels and there's a lot more sense of like rhythmic moment to moment kind of subdivisions of images. And when you get to Crimson Flower, I'm imagining he's probably saying this is how many panels a page or something like that. And then you're talking about your visualization and writing process. So was there an adjustment in like that aspect? Like having to adjust your sense of pacing and flow that was challenging in any way?
With static, I purposely went into it wanting to do a lot of panels and capture those small moments that a lot of comics might kind of pass over. So with that book, I purposely went into that one wanting to do a lot of panels per page and capture more moment to moment, storytelling beats that a lot of comics might usually skip over as an experiment. With that book, I wanted to do that on purpose. It's not my go-to way. It's just how I wanted to do that book. But with Crimson Flower, obviously I'm not writing that. He kind of he left it kind of open. He just said, if you need to add a panel, remove a panel, feel free. I mostly stuck to what he had written. But the only thing that was kind of a challenge, there were certain descriptions where it was really confusing, where I was it was like, is he wanting me to guess what he's visualizing, or is he wanting me to visualize my own thing? It just wasn't super clear. And that's not a criticism of any kind. It only happened a handful of times through the whole book. But there were these certain descriptions that would pop up where I'm like, because when I'm thinking of a comic, when I'm writing my own comic, I'm only seeing it the one way, pretty much.
Yeah.
But in the process of drawing it, I might, in the moment, think of a better way of doing a panel.
Right.
But when I'm not writing it, I don't know what aspects of this are really important. What is he really wanting me to capture? What is he seeing something specific in his head?
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't specific enough. But on the other hand, he's also leaving it open so that I can interpret it my own way. It's just there was just certain moments that were so open that I was just kind of thrown off by that. Like, oh wait, I'm having a weird experience with this. Like, I just kind of went with my own gut and like, this makes sense. If he wants me to change it, I can do that. But
I would imagine this isn't a problem with Matt Kent, since he's an artist himself, but I always found it funny when I'd get something from a writer, and as far as I could figure out, it was an impossible shot.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt that would happen, but they're trying to get you to see things from two angles at the same time, and it's like, I can't make that. I need two panels for that or something. But he seems visual enough.
Yeah, that never happened. It was just, I would have to have an example of it, but it was, again, it's not a criticism of any kind. It's more of, I was just thrown off, like, oh wait, is he wanting me to, I can't tell, because some of them would just be obvious. Like there's not really too many ways that you could really interpret this one simple task. Like she hands the phone to the doctor or whatever. It's pretty straightforward, but there would be these panels that would, I just remember like, wait, is he wanting me to like, I don't know. Maybe this doesn't make sense, but
Well, it's
I remember
almost
that
like,
being the thing.
were you getting stuck in the where it's like, oh, how would Kent tackle this visually? Like, is he writing it for how he would tackle it, and then you're trying to think of how you would tackle the same thing? Because
I
that
wouldn't
seems
say
like
that.
to
I
me
wouldn't.
like
I wasn't trying to see how he would do it. It just, I couldn't tell. Was he picturing something, and I'm not really
Mhm.
picking up on what he's trying to communicate here, or is it so open that he's wanting me to just kind of go with my own interpretation?
I say.
Was that the first time you'd worked with the writer since you were talking about like it sounds to me like you were working with writers on the internet trying to get Marvel stuff in. Was that the first time since then?
No, there was, and also that stuff was the Marvel stuff was just on my own, and
Okay.
the working with the writers earlier on, those were just creator owned,
Okay.
3 to 5 pages. But anyway,
Mhm.
no, there was. I want to say it was right after the Freak, where I did a one shot thing with a writer that just never. I don't know. It was such a weird.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, just no. It does exist. It's
Oh.
just not, and no one knows about it. I spent like 2 months on this one comic, and I don't know why I did it. That was a weird time. I don't know. Just
We won't dig, but we'd love to see it.
Yeah, on the topic of writers and scripts, and because I'm like, I think, you know, I picture things in my head and I put them right onto the page. Like I have to have like that inner picture in order to like draw something. Like I work it out in my brain and then I put it down. But I find like the times when I've worked with like a writer from a script, I have a really, it's impossible for me to make the thing in my head without a lot of effort. Do you have that? Because you said you kind of visualize things in your head before you kind of put it down. Like when you're reading a script, is it like, oh shit, like I gotta I have to construct this all out of whole cloth?
well, it depends on the panel, but I would say usually more often than not, I'm kind of going with my first or second visualization.
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing the scene. It's just stuff pops up in my head. Like I'll read it, it'll pop up in my head, and then oh okay yeah, and then I'll try to translate that to something I could draw. Like
Mm-hmm.
I from there I might alter what I'm seeing. I might go, oh I should do this perspective, or I should um, do it from a different angle, or nope, this isn't working at all. Let me come up with something else. I could be stuck. I could be completely stuck and have to go back to it, or yeah. But usually it's just I'll just read it, and whatever I'm seeing,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get that down somehow. Sometimes I'll yeah, I guess I won't show that, but
Oh,
Show it.
tease.
I can't show it.
Okay,
Sorry.
fair enough.
What size do you work at, by the way?
What size?
Yeah.
Well, it's changed. The Freak was 11 by 17.
Uh-huh.
Static was 11 by 14.
Interesting.
Crimson Flower was 11 by 14. Now I take 11 by 17 and then I cut off an inch. Oh, wait, is it an inch? Well, I'm working at the standard, like they have the live area or whatever it's
Yeah.
called.
10 by 15.
Yeah, 10 by 15. And then there's the 9 by 14 and a quarter
Mm-hmm.
within it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's slightly larger than that. Like I'll crop off, nothing off the sides. I'll crop off the top and the bottom so that it's more, because I get so close to the board that
yeah, I could tell that.
Yeah.
It's always been the way I draw. So with the 11x17, it's literally too far for me when I'm leaning down. The desk is like cutting into my stomach.
Yeah.
So if I can cut off the area that I don't need, now it's closer to me.
Yeah.
That's why I shifted to the 11x14 for 2 books. I wanted it to be, but now I have the same amount of space that you get with 11x17 that most artists are using, but now I've cropped off the areas that don't matter, and now it's within my control. I can really, get close to it and
really mess your neck up.
really destroy my back. So,
yeah.
So it's like 11x15.5 or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
I was gonna say
I like the 11x14 size.
That's an interesting decision, especially that you did that with static, because static is where all of a sudden you get way more panels, and it seems like that one especially, it would be like, well, I need more space for this. So that's extra impressive. I did want to ask too, when you said the experiment with like more panels and more moment to moment in static, was that purely just something you want to do with the art? Was there something in the story that you felt necessitated that? Like what was driving that decision to experiment?
It was mostly just what I was wanting to do at the time. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I got the idea, like, but I feel like that was not the best decision, because a lot of people, maybe I should have saved that for a book down the road, because I feel like a lot of people, they know me for my art style, or, oh, we like your art, we like how you drew this or that. And with doing that, I had to cramp, which I don't mind, but it's almost like a different artist where you're not really seeing the art as much. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like the action and the glyph of the character rather than
you're
all
only
the
getting
texturing. Part
of what it was is I wanted to show, like, this is purely storytelling. I'm not the glitz and the glam or the pizzazz or all the extra stuff. It's not necessarily here as much, but I'm doing that more now with the recent book, where I'm doing. Initially, I wanted to do more pages, like a double-sized thing for all the issues, but you get way less panels so that you really see the art, but you'd be flipping more consistently.
Right.
So it's kind of the opposite of static. But now we were kind of talking about this before the recording, but a lot of publishers, that's another thing they kind of frown upon. Like, no, you got to work within this. So I have edited it down to more the standard 22.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Which is fine. It's actually another fun challenge. It's a way of trimming, because a lot of what I was doing is there were a lot of, again, slow moments, but you'd get them over pages.
Right.
So, like, it might sound crazy, but 10 pages of just some people walking and talking, but in an interesting way, I think. But I've had to edit that down to maybe half that, or, just as an example.
To me, that's unfortunate, because we look at a lot of manga too, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about the manga is you'll get these I've been reading one called Blood on the Tracks. I don't know if you've seen that, by Shuzo Oshimi, and it will just be like one whole issue is about a guy, like, deciding what to eat or something, and all of the faces of like the decision and stuff.
See, I love that.
Like,
I
bring
want more
it to
of that.
I mean, I think we need more of that. I think it's a more sophisticated thing. And then with your ability to make like each illustration really like this fucking juicy thing on its own, like, come on, that would be amazing. Push it.
Because I feel like that's, I mean,
all the publishers.
Well,
that's
we can talk.
Because but your style fixes a lot of the when you have a low page panel count, I feel like it's easy to breeze through a book, but your style is it's detailed, or there's a lot to look at within each illustration. So
that's what I'm going for.
It changes the pace up. So because it slows the eye down. I thought though, like the static with the panel count being high ties into the themes of addiction and sort of withdrawal, and there's definitely I think it adds to the overall like you said, the storytelling of it. Like it makes sense narratively.
I think it works. It's just the timing was wrong.
Yeah,
that's kind of more what I'm saying. Like maybe if I did that 3 books later, but like I said, I'm more known for my detail or textures and that kind of thing, and you're not seeing that in that book. So I've even heard some people say, "Oh, I was a little disappointed. Like I was trying to see what you would do," but it's like that's not what I was going for.
Right,
You're missing the whole point. But that's why I'm saying if I waited to do that kind of thing, maybe that would have been a better strategy. But hey,
you feel like you defied the audience expectations at the wrong point, kind of.
Yeah, I got weird a little bit too early, but weirder than I already am.
Well, I think there's something to that though. Like if you can consistently defy the expectations, that will be its own thing that people like. Hopefully you can build a reputation around that more than just this surface thing, like this other kind of relentless experimentation. Because it's something I noticed and picked up on and appreciated, like regardless of whether it has 5,000 ticky hatch marks on it or not. Like, and you're proving some kind of consistent quality underneath the surface gloss too, that maybe in the long run will be beneficial to you, I hope.
Who knows? I'm just as clueless as anyone else.
Yeah.
Where does all the how long has the interest in texture been there? And like it's getting, I don't want to use the word crazy, but like you're really exploring like a bajillion different type of marks. Like
well, with the freak, I wasn't really doing that. It was just clean lines, and for the most part, that's kind of all I was more into, more of like a Jeff Darrow style, just being honest. Like I wouldn't say he was a direct influence at the time, but I do love his work, but that's kind of more the direction I was in. But since then it's just shifted to first it was textures. Like I don't want to call it out, but kind of in static. Part of what that was is that I didn't know how to do lighting. Like ever since a kid, I didn't know how to shade, really, like shadows, and I was intimidated by that, so I just didn't do it. And that's kind of what you're seeing with the freak. I'm like, let me just hone in on what I do know, get these shapes down, and then slowly, kind of like with the writing I was talking about before, I slowly tiptoed in with that. Let me just try this. And slowly I kind of gained the confidence. Let me try a little bit here, a little bit there. And so with Static, which is the book after the freak, there was a growth there, or there was a shift of some kind, where I went to textures. But if you actually pay attention, lighting is not, I don't really know what I'm doing with lighting. Like I'm not really picking but I chose, let me not worry about that. Let me just kind of do my own thing here. It's going to be maybe kind of a mess or kind of weird. Maybe people won't even notice, but I guess I'm pointing it out myself now. But I went, like I said, I jumped to textures while ignoring kind of like the rules of lighting. I didn't pick a light source, whereas now, if you pay attention, I am.
Yeah.
So now it's come together, and hopefully it all kind of it reads better, I guess.
Well, there's a design aspect to it that, like, regardless of if it's well lit or not, is it well designed and does it resonate off the page? And I think that's always there in your work. And then if you're now pulling that off with a sense of lighting too, then all the better. Yeah, I can see that now that I'm flipping through the three. It's always interesting to hear what the artist is like, what's pushing the evolution.
More than likely, no one's seeing this. I'm just pointing out everything that you probably didn't even notice, and now you realize how bad it is.
Yeah, no, not how bad, but it's like, oh yeah, I can see that that's the next step. I can see that that's what he's doing. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at, the revelation when you described your current process. It seems to allow for you to be adjusting those things, like getting the lighting and getting the gradients in there, and then going back and from a designer's aspect, still making sure things pop. So that's even more compelling to me now. So I think it will be pretty compelling to people to go back and look at all of that. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And the texturing thing, like there's this one panel I keep coming back to in Crimson Flower. Now, of course, I'm not gonna be able to find it, but multiple times where you're drawing in her hair and you're just using different textures for each chunk of her hair. I guess this is one here. That really fascinates me too. And I'm seeing that a lot in the sketches you do. Like here, you know, this will have swirlies and that will be cross contour and stipple, or more like a Sam Keith texture. And some of them are like entirely, I've never even seen them before. You're kind of inventing new mark making.
I don't know about that, but part of what it is that not only is it I'm trying not to be bored, and I'm trying to excite not only myself but the reader. It's that the characters are just kind of symbols. And so as long as there's enough information there to communicate, this is this character. Okay, we've got that established, set that aside. Now from there, we can have fun with this. As long as we're not, you know, confusing you and the storytelling is still clear, free range.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, these are the two panels. This one here, where it's got these swirly bits and then the stippling and then like the flat shading and then the rounded cross contour shading and then more like this ticky hatching here. And then this one where it's like this really rounded out kind of like Anki Billal. And then this is like this really scribbly pattern, and this is the really straight, and you'll like flatten areas out and make other areas round. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Or like what you're saying with, look, the character is a visible enough symbol. Who cares what I do within that? Like, that's really inspiring to me, because I don't think I would give myself the freedom to do that, because it doesn't make like a literal logical sense. And so it's inspiring.
Yeah, you can't think too literal with it. I feel like or the more free you are in that way, even if you think of it like a better example that we always do is if a character is in the distance, you have to distill down, you have to simplify so much of what's there. But again, it's just a symbol. We're as long as we're seeing enough of what the character is, and we can clearly read, oh, that's that character, that's Jeff, that's it. So why not? You can do that on a big scale too. As long as we're seeing, you know, all right, the freak, he's got a kind of a triangle, weird head, the sunken in eyes, the frowny face, the weird hair. You can communicate that in so many different ways. And, you know, not a lot of people do that.
His black eye, by the way you draw that black eye in the book is one of the most viscerally nasty and uncomfortable. There was multiple times in the book where just that bulging black eye just absolutely made me shudder.
Sorry.
It's like a clam.
Yeah, it's a clam sticking off of his head. No, I mean, that's a good thing. I'm curious, you mentioned Jeff Darrow. It's always fun to play the influence game, especially when you've gotten into such idiosyncratic style is yours, I couldn't help but going through and speculating some of who I think, but I'd be curious, like if there were any other really big people that you were thinking about.
The earliest one would be Tom McFarlane.
Okay. Yeah.
He's like the first comic book artist that I ever recognized, or at least his work, without knowing it was him. Later on, I figured out, oh yeah, that's him. But I remember seeing his covers, Spider-Man covers, and just being captured by those. Like, whatever that is, I need to do that. Whatever that is, I'm hooked. Like,
yeah.
That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. That's the coolest Spider-Man I've ever seen. I'm addicted. Like, just pump that into my veins. Who else? Kelly Jones, Batman.
Interesting. Okay.
A lot of that is like just the way that he's he took a character that we all know and love, and he kind of what I'm talking about. The symbol is there, and he kind of exaggerated it and had fun with it and made it his own. But also he's just a great artist. Like,
yeah,
there was I think an artist edition of some of his stuff, and there's actually a YouTube video, I think, of that. If anyone wants to look that up. Who else? Oh, a more recent one. You want to talk about textures? I think he only does covers. It's what's his name? I think it's Chris Stevens, maybe. If that rings a bell.
Let me look.
I don't think he does any actual interiors, but just his art style, everything about it I love. Like, he does full color too, but he plays with a lot of different textures, and you can tell he's really meticulous, and he's taking, I could be wrong, but it reads like he's taking weeks really trying to hone in on this thing that he's seeing, and the way that he's putting these different things together. Yeah, that's him. If you go to his Instagram, actually, you could see some really cool stuff. But
yeah, his process, he shares a lot of that in there too.
Yeah, I've seen his stuff.
He's currently one of my favorites. Like, anything that he posts, I'm just like, whoa, what is this? Like, he's reinventing something.
His stuff looks like Travis Charest to me a lot.
There's definitely some. Yeah, I could see that.
Like, especially the way he handles, like in this one, because I feel like Travis Charest got away from his style and he's gotten too realistic, almost too smoothed out or something. This guy kind of brings back that.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with him, to be honest. I've seen his stuff, but it's, yeah, you're right. It is more realistic, and this is still kind of.
This is Travis Charest through and through. I mean, he's doing Wildcats.
Okay, maybe I'm getting schooled right now. I need to do my research.
Yeah, this too. This is totally. Yeah, look up.
I mean, I've seen his stuff. He's great, also, but
his newer stuff's not as good though. He's gotten too cleaned up. But his older
like that first image. I mean, it's very photorealistic.
Yeah, his older stuff had more, like when he really he was out there, like people knew about him, but when he did this Wildcats X-Men book, that's when he, like, for a few years, I mean, he wrecked everybody's mind, I think.
Is this it right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is where I see the Chris Stevens guy going like, oh shit, like, you know, like I really like that thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're more familiar with
I don't know. I just
maybe you can kind of tell what his influence is, or it's more obvious. I'm not I don't know. I just saw that guy's stuff and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, he's really good. But just like looking in that vein, whereas now Travis Charest, it looks more like this. I don't know, he's kind of lost some of that sense of hatching and texture a little bit. It's more like cleaned up or
pivoted
something.
to a different thing.
Yeah, that
It's like-
Steven stuff is cool though.
Yeah.
Also, his compositions I really like. He takes stuff like that Spider-Man, or
Mm-hmm.
he takes stuff that honestly it's pretty simple, but just his delivery of what he's doing. I mean, it's undeniable. Especially if you really zoom in on that arm, on the lizard arm, just the textures in there. If you can get it,
Yeah, he's got
I
all
don't-
his scales and stuff.
he's really
Oh,
getting
that's
it. Like,
crazy.
look at that, the
Yeah.
lighting, the different colors, the textures.
God knows what I did to my computer here though.
the
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just obsessed with what he's doing lately. That's a more recent one.
oh, it's too bad he's not doing interiors. But when
Yeah,
you're
I don't
doing that
think he
kind of
is.
stuff, like could you actually do interiors like that?
No, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that at speed to put out a book on a?
Definitely not with any speed. Yeah.
Well, you do European books. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
happened to Travis Charest. Is he went over and did like he spent 10 years doing like 5 pages of the Meta Barons.
Right.
It was like, yeah, you can't maintain. Yeah, this is his Meta Baron shit that he did.
Oh wow.
And like
Oh,
you
I see. I
can't
haven't read any of
maintain that. Like
No.
he never finished the book. They fired him because it was taking him too long.
What do they expect?
Yeah, but I feel like
Give me a month.
Yeah.
It's like
What were you
I
gonna
feel
say,
like
Matt?
putting that level of I guess effort is one word for it, but you're kind of defying what a comic is requires. Like it doesn't going to that level. I don't know. It
Too much.
goes. It's too much. It goes to this. Everyone goes about like all the tracing and the swiping and all that stuff. And I think all of those crutches exist because people are setting up these impossible standards for themselves of like realism or, and it's all realism where it's like you can't produce on that level without some crutches to lean on a sort of a consistent basis. And I miss the days of when artists sort of leaned into the cartooning aspect more and didn't worry so much about perfection where I feel like there's a big stress on perfection and in the sort of, we'll call it mainstream comics.
I wonder if Steven, so because Charest infamously didn't use any reference.
That's nuts.
Yeah, supposedly that shit's all out of his head. And the Stevens guy kind of strikes me like he might be able to do that out of his head too.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Stevens is, but also he's also that level of effort is like you can't do that even if he's not using it. It's not like a reference or not reference. It's the
Yeah.
It's that style is I think impossible to do 22 pages a month like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you think it's a little bit like because of that it's a bit wasted effort because like you're gonna breeze by it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, like Matt was saying with I think that you were saying this with Static, like you can breeze through books right now, and it's like, well, why did I put all that extra effort into having 30 panels on the page?
Yeah, that's a yeah. I try not to think about that.
It's and the worst is when people read things digitally too, where it's like, oh shit, I drew 90 pages, but you read it in 2 minutes.
Yeah. But then again, the other side of that, you could maybe look at it like, well, maybe if I put in a little bit of extra effort, maybe that'll make them kind of slow down or go back. Because I mean, me personally, maybe just the general comic book fan wouldn't, but I'm an artist, so maybe it's a little different. But I'll go back to certain issues and just look up certain things like, oh wow, yeah, that was really impressive. Like I tried more or something.
Yeah.
Like
he was someone else I was going to ask about, like, or not that I was going to ask about, but I was wondering if you were going to say when I asked about list of influences, he's someone who seems
I wouldn't
like
say he's an influence, but because his stuff is just so much different. But I do really like his stuff. Like,
I think that your work is in a dialogue with his in some ways, with the exaggerations and the like. They're totally different like looks, I think, but he's also been pushing himself into a further form of exaggeration, similarly to what you're kind of doing. You know, if you look at what he did in the first, I have a page from the first issue of Luther Strode over there, and it's like, but he's kind of way more realistic at the realistic in those pages, but now all of his work is so geometric and abstract, which it's a really cool, like you can kind of see the beginnings of it there, but he's gone
honestly,
all
he
the
didn't
way.
really grab my attention in that first book. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I thought it was cool, but it wasn't until probably it might have been around the Ghost Rider where it started to get a lot more exaggerated, and like he was kind of forming his own language.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, he's really doing something interesting here. Like, and then it just kept getting more, progressing down this weird path, but a good path.
Yeah.
And even now, I feel like now he's more kind of simplifying certain things too.
Yeah.
Like he used to do more kind of, not Darrow, but more little,
like intricate lines and stuff. And
and now it's a little bit more like,
there's almost like a weird Kirby energy to what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like more just shapes, and he's kind of simplifying and bold lines. I don't know.
I think it's the sense of
best idea of
there's like a sense of exaggeration and plasticity.
Yeah.
And like that's where I see the link, not in a direct influence, but that you're both like the plasticity of your forms, and that like anatomy, like, fuck anatomy, like let's make an arm look like a noodle, like if it needs to, like in your work, and he'll kind of really bend and stretch things in interesting ways. That, again, it's like that thing that you're saying about the icon. I'm going to be chewing on that for a while. Once you know the icon, like how far can you fill it in or bend it or something like that. Was there an artist that you said Kelly Jones a little bit? Was there an artist that set that light bulb off, or was that just through your own process?
I guess it was kind of my own thing that I kind of came across. Like it just kind of hit me one day while I was drawing something. It might have been during the Freak. Well, I think at a certain point I realized I was doing that. And the more comics that I've been drawing, I just kind of realized, like, I knew that at first I kind of looked at it like a weakness, because it's always drilled into your head, like, you got to be consistent. The character's got to look, why? Like, that's kind of the narrative when it comes to that. And I would think of it like, oh, I hope they don't notice. I hope no one looks at that and goes, wow, this guy really sucks. He can't keep. But now I kind of look at it as a strength. And it's like, not only am I just kind of experimenting with it, and as long as it's the symbol and I'm communicating, what the panel needs to say, depending on what the moment is, you can kind of play into that. So like if it's a fight scene, you can make them look a little more brolic, or maybe if they're kind of embarrassed, draw them in a way where they look more meek or more, withdrawn or whatever. You can kind of play to the emotion, or you can play to the moment, instead of just kind of aimlessly, oh, well, it's the symbol, it's the character, let me just kind of have fun. That's fine too, but I think it's even better when it fits the moment and it fits what's going on in this story.
Yeah, character sheet be damned. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Lesniewski dropping knowledge. You're going to add something to the conversation here, and when people listen to this, I hope.
Maybe.
So what can you talk about what you're working on coming forward, or like at least if not specifics, like what you're trying to accomplish going forward in the next year or so?
I mean, what can I
We
say?
know that there's pages somewhere off camera that he keeps looking at.
Yeah,
Oh, there's definitely pages.
as
I can show you the
specific
first
or
page.
as general as you can.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Let me see.
He keeps grabbing.
Slide up a panel of the first page.
Yeah.
Nope, that's the 5th page. Is it? Nope. They're all out of order. Well, actually, no. There's a reason why. There's a reason why I can't show it. I just don't.
Yeah.
But people can hopefully buy a new book from you sometime this year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe. Yeah. There's really not a lot I can say. It's other than what I've already said. I've kind of it is the book that I wanted to do, like 40 something pages per issue, less panels, but now I've edited it down to 22. Maybe black and white.
Please
don't count on it, but there's a chance. And it's me writing and drawing it. Yeah, it's just kind of the continued evolution of what I've been doing, and hopefully it kind of it captures more of what you might expect, but not in a boring way. Not like, oh well, yeah, that's him, but it kind of like what I was saying with Static, where it's, wait, what is this? This isn't, the two don't really connect. Like, it might be more, a lot of this could be in my head. I don't know. It's,
I don't know. I grabbed that first, like the ash can version of Static. I don't know, the black and white first issue, after I don't know where if I got the Freak online. Maybe I got the Freak at the last SPX ever.
Could be
from Ad House. That's possibly where I got it. But I got the Freak, and then I got the Static one, and I thought it was I thought it was direct line. So
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But,
one of
about the black and white art, I had one more question here, and then we'll say thanks for your time and let you get off the hook. But looking at the Freak, and then like, because I really do enjoy your work in black and white. Looking at the stuff in Dagger, your work, there was like a range of like different reproduction quality, which is something we talk about a lot on this channel, just because Sean, who runs Living the Line Publishing, is like really focused on perfection and reproduction. The fidelity of line work and reproduction quality seemed higher to me in yours and a couple of the other stories. And some other artists look like it just wasn't reproduced as well. There was like half tones noticeable and stuff. So I was wondering, like, are you pretty aware of that component of your art, like preparing your files to send over to publishers to make sure that the fineness of your lines transfers? Like, is that something you're controlling? Or
to an extent, it's something I've been learning more about it more recently, but a lot of it has to do with scanning, right? Like scanning and then how you kind of manipulate what's there. Like, is that?
Yeah, we gotta hook you up with Sean.
Yeah, I just wonder how much of that you're doing before you send it over to a publisher, and how much you're just like hoping they know how to do it.
Well, I am slightly adjusting. It's not a raw scan. Like I'll scan it in, and then usually it's just the brightness and the contrast is what I'm playing with. I mean, I'm still trying to stay true to what I've drawn. And so whatever I've drawn, you're seeing that. but
Yeah.
I'm just adjusting it slightly so that it just reads better.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I'm doing.
Okay. Because there was a noticeable difference. Like yours
Yeah.
is like the second thing in the book, but really the first story in the book besides the bridge one. I said, shit, this is printed really well. And then I flipped to some of the other ones and I was like, yeah, no, it's all right.
I don't know. It's something I think about, but I also know that some of it is out of my hands because I don't
Yeah.
know what paper it's going to be on. I don't know if they're going to be messing with it. I hope not. Usually they'll ask for me to approve. But I do what I can, and then after that, just hope they're not messing with it, or hope. So far, it's been good. So I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's working. It's working. It caught my eye, and like that is like we kind of sit around and kvetch about it a lot on this channel. So that yeah, it really impressed me. But I don't want to keep you all night, Matt. Like we really appreciate you taking the time, and I gotta say, like I'm super excited to see whatever comes next. I was foolish not to have gotten all three of your works until recently. And yeah, like I just that constant push forward, like I have faith in what I've seen, that like I can tap into you as like I'm gonna watch this career and I'll never get bored. It's always gonna go somewhere, and I just love that about your art. It's so exciting to me. So thanks so much for joining us.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words. Thanks for picking up my books, and thanks for even asking me to come on.
Yeah,
Means
it
a
was an
lot.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, this was great. I enjoy your work. So I'm looking forward to, once we stop recording, you can show us one of these pages that you
Oh,
keep
for
running
sure.
the show.
Yeah, have to.
Sorry to the audience, but
Secret's
unfortunately
gonna
I
stay secret.
can't. I want to, but for more reason than one, I don't think I can.
Okay. Well, thanks so
Pick
much
up
for
the
following
old
along,
book.
guys. And we're gonna stop the recording now and go look at some artwork. So sorry. Later, everybody.
What's